Her breathing was shallow. Blood pooled beneath her on the cold tile floor of her kitchen. A knife lay just inches from her trembling fingers, slick with the life she'd almost lost. In the chaos, her children were upstairs, silent, scared, hiding exactly where she told them to go if this moment ever came. Sirens wailed in the distance, but to Monica Halstead, they felt a lifetime away. Everything hurt. Her lungs burned. Her vision blurred. She had fought to protect her children in court. Tonight, she fought to stay alive for them. This wasn't just a home invasion. This wasn't just a custody dispute. This was revenge. You see, Monica never expected that winning full custody of her kids would come at the cost of her safety. The man she once promised forever to, her husband, had become a stranger. And when the judge ruled in her favor, he didn't take it as justice. He took it as betrayal. Now her life was bleeding out onto the kitchen floor. What would you do if the person you once loved turned your home into a war zone, just because you stood your ground? Could you protect your kids from someone they once called Daddy? Would you see the warning signs? Or would you find out too late? Stay with me because this story might change how you view love, custody, and survival. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply that you couldn't imagine them hurting you? Have you ever looked at the parent of your children and thought, no matter what happens, we'll protect them together? Monica did. She believed that even if the love faded, even if the marriage failed, the one thing they'd both protect above all else was their children. But she was wrong. Because when her husband lost custody, he didn't just lose a legal battle. He lost control. And to a man like Derek Halstead, losing control meant someone had to pay. At first it was subtle. Threatening texts from an unknown number. Her car tires slashed late at night. A dead rabbit found in her mailbox. The police couldn't do much. No witnesses, no proof. But Monica knew. She knew it wasn't random. She knew the man who once swore to love and cherish her had turned into someone she no longer recognized. Someone capable of anything. This wasn't about heartbreak. It was about punishment. The question isn't just how did he reach this point? The real question is, how many red flags do we ignore before it's too late? Because for Monica, one custody ruling led to a nightmare that nearly stole her life and left her kids traumatized forever. But how did this all begin? What pushed a father to try and destroy the mother of his children? You're about to find out. But before we continue, if you believe no parent should fear for their life after a custody hearing, tap the like button. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Have you or someone you know ever experienced something similar? And make sure to subscribe to True Crime Dossier, because every story we tell reveals the cracks that hide in plain sight. Before the courtroom, before the restraining orders and the blade in the kitchen, there was love. Monica Jameson met Derek Halstead on the campus of West Texas State during her sophomore year. She was studying to become a nurse. He was working toward a degree in construction engineering. He had that down-to-earth charm that made you believe he'd fix anything. Broken cars, broken fences, broken hearts. For a while, Monica believed he was her forever. They were young, hopeful, and full of plans. Within months, they became inseparable. While other couples argued over weekend plans or phone passwords, Monica and Derek were flipping through baby name books and floor plans for their future dream home. Their connection felt solid, and when Derek proposed just before graduation, she didn't hesitate. They got married in a small chapel surrounded by friends and family. 2 years later, they had their first child, a daughter named Layla. Their second, a boy named Micah, came 3 years after. Monica left her job as a registered nurse to stay home full-time. Derek had just landed a supervisor role with a local construction firm, and for a while, things felt settled. Their neighbors saw them as the definition of a stable family. The Halsteads had the cozy 2-story house with a swing set in the yard, matching holiday pajamas every Christmas, and family game nights every Friday. Monica baked cookies for school events. Derek grilled on weekends. On paper, they had everything that mattered. But Monica knew better. The smiles were shorter. The silences longer. The moments of connection slowly faded. The man who once brought her flowers just because he passed a florist now barely looked up from his phone during dinner. At first, she told herself it was the stress of work. Later, she'd wonder how she could have missed the signs. Because the man she married was changing. The first major shift came when Derek received a promotion. He was made project lead on a multi-million-dollar residential development just outside of Amarillo. More money, more recognition, more time away from home. At first, Monica celebrated with him. She believed they'd finally be able to renovate the house, maybe plan that trip to San Diego the kids kept asking about. But Derek came home later. He stopped returning Monica's texts. Business trips became more frequent, but his excuses grew thinner. I had to stay for last-minute reports. There was a power outage at the site. My phone died. Monica tried to stay understanding. For months, she convinced herself it was just temporary stress. But small moments started piling up. There were unexpected credit card charges, dinners for 2, hotel stays in cities Derek claimed he never visited. When she asked, he brushed it off with tired smiles and vague explanations. He started working out again, buying new clothes, wearing cologne Monica had never seen before. It all came to a head one Sunday night. While doing laundry, Monica reached into Derek's jeans pocket and pulled out a hotel key card. Not a chain they ever stayed in, and certainly not one near any construction site. Her heart sank. She knew. But even then she didn't want to believe it. She waited until the kids went to bed, then confronted him. Calmly. Gently. His reaction wasn't denial. It was dismissal. "So what if I needed space?" he said. "You're always tired. Always home with the kids. We haven't been us in years." No apology. No effort to explain. No concern for how deeply his words cut. That night he packed a duffel bag and left. Days passed. Then weeks. Monica hoped he'd return, if not for her, then for the children. But instead, she saw him for the first time in public 3 weeks later, walking through the mall with a woman half her age. Long black hair. High heels. Loud laugh. Derek's arm was wrapped tightly around her waist, like he was proud of the replacement. Her name was Kyra, and she wasn't trying to stay discreet. To Kyra, Monica was just a footnote. To Monica, it was humiliation, loud and raw, right in front of her daughter. Monica didn't cry the day he left. Not when she found the hotel key, not when he packed his things, not even when she saw him flaunting Kyra like some victory prize. But 2 nights after the mall encounter, she stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing a pan, and broke down over a bottle of dish soap. Silent tears. Then a quiet, aching sob that escaped before she could swallow it. Her daughter, Layla, tiptoed into the kitchen. "Mommy, are you okay?" she whispered, hugging her around the waist. Monica wiped her face, forced a smile, and kissed the top of her daughter's head. But something inside her shifted. That hug reminded her who she was fighting for. And from that moment on, she decided no one, not Derek, not Kyra, not a flashy lawyer, was going to take her children away from her. She contacted a local attorney the next morning and began preparing for divorce. Not out of revenge, but out of protection. She didn't want Layla and Micah growing up around a man who threw tantrums when he didn't get his way. A man who could walk out on his family and show up in public with a stranger before the wounds had even formed. Derek didn't take the filing well. He accused her of being manipulative. He called her emotional, unstable, even unfit. When she didn't respond, he doubled down, telling friends that Monica had turned the kids against him and that she was using them as weapons. Monica didn't retaliate. She focused on her home, her children, and the case ahead. Her lawyer told her it wouldn't be easy. Derek had money, charm, and no shortage of people willing to speak on his behalf. But what Monica had was truth, and a quiet strength that even Derek had underestimated. What she didn't know yet was how far he was willing to go when the truth wasn't enough to win. The paperwork sat on the corner of Monica's dining table for 2 days before she signed it. Divorce, custody, separation of assets, terms of visitation. She read every word not because she had doubts, but because the weight of what it meant was enormous. She wasn't just ending a marriage. She was drawing a line Derek couldn't cross anymore. A line that would protect her children from a man who had chosen someone else over stability, responsibility, and family. The petition requested full physical and legal custody of Layla and Micah. Monica didn't want shared weekends or rotating holidays. She wanted control over their schooling, their healthcare, their safety. If Derek couldn't show up emotionally, why should he get to show up whenever he pleased? Her lawyer warned her, custody fights bring out the worst in people. He wasn't exaggerating. From the moment Derek was served, his reaction was explosive. He texted Monica a string of insults, accusing her of manipulating the system and turning their kids against him. He showed up unannounced at Layla's school, demanding to speak with her. He contacted mutual friends, spinning the story to make Monica out to be vengeful and irrational. Then came his legal strategy. Derek hired a firm from Dallas known for tearing down custodial claims. His attorney was aggressive, persuasive, and ruthless. They filed motions to subpoena Monica's therapy records, claiming her history of anxiety and fatigue made her unfit to care for 2 children on her own. Monica was stunned. Yes, she'd seen a therapist. Yes, she talked about the stress of raising 2 kids while being emotionally abandoned. But she never imagined those private sessions would become courtroom ammunition. It was exhausting. Every session felt like standing trial, not just for her parenting, but for her mental state, her choices, her entire identity as a mother. Still, she pressed on. She documented everything. School pickups, doctor's visits, extracurricular activities, every late-night call from Layla, every drawing Micah brought home. She collected character statements from teachers, neighbors, and her pastor. She even invited a social worker to visit her home. Because Monica didn't just want to win. She needed to. The custody hearing spanned 6 draining weeks. Monica sat through each day like she was holding her breath underwater. While Derek's attorney picked through her personal life like a case study, Monica stayed composed. She didn't flinch when they brought up her therapy sessions. She didn't react when they questioned why she hadn't returned to nursing full-time. She kept her focus where it needed to be, on Layla and Micah. Because this wasn't just about the past. It was about what kind of future her children would wake up in. When it was her turn to speak, Monica told the truth, not to impress the judge, but to give voice to everything she had carried alone for years. She spoke of Derek's absence, his temper, his disengagement. She shared how the kids would ask why their father didn't come home, why he didn't call, why he forgot birthdays. Her voice cracked only once, when she described the night Layla asked, "Mommy, is Daddy mad because we love you more?" That sentence hung in the courtroom like a fog. Monica's witnesses took the stand. Layla's second-grade teacher testified about how the little girl clung to Monica at drop-off, but barely acknowledged Derek during school events. A neighbor recalled late-night shouting matches from the Halstead house. A family friend who used to babysit described Monica as the kind of mom who would leave detailed notes, extra snacks, and a backup plan for every scenario. Derek sat stone-faced throughout, but cracks showed during his cross-examination. When asked why he missed 6 of his scheduled visitations in the past 3 months, he scoffed and said, "I had more important things going on." The courtroom murmured. Even his own attorney shifted awkwardly in his chair. On the final day, the judge reviewed the evidence in silence. His verdict came down in a voice as calm as it was final. Full physical and legal custody to Monica Jameson. Supervised visits only, at a licensed facility. Derek was granted no overnight rights, and all decision-making authority regarding the children would rest solely with Monica. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just closed her eyes and whispered thank you. Across the courtroom, Derek's expression didn't twitch. He didn't look at the judge. He didn't look at his lawyer. He looked straight at Monica, with a glare that didn't say "I lost." It said "You'll pay for this." The court ruling was supposed to bring peace. Instead, it marked the beginning of something far more dangerous. In the weeks following the decision, Monica tried to return to normal life. She walked Layla to school, packed Micah's lunch, and filled their evenings with puzzles and movie nights. But peace became a performance. Behind every routine was a new edge of fear. The first incident came 5 days after the ruling. Monica found her car tires slashed in the driveway, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. No note. No witnesses. She called the police, filed a report, and tried to explain to her children why they were taking a cab to school that morning. 3 days later, her mailbox smelled strange. When she opened it, she gagged. A dead rabbit, throat cut, fur matted in blood, was curled inside like a grotesque message. Layla was the one who spotted it first. That night, Monica didn't sleep. She installed new locks, added motion sensor lights, changed her alarm code. But the most disturbing signs didn't come with blood. They came with silence. Anonymous text messages began arriving at all hours. "You're not safe. You'll regret this. I'm always watching." The police tried to trace the numbers, but they were disposable, untraceable. Her attorney advised filing for a restraining order, but without direct proof linking Derek, there was nothing legally actionable. He hadn't made physical contact. He hadn't been caught near her property. The system, for all its rules, couldn't protect her from a man who knew exactly how to bend them. Monica kept her phone by her bed every night. She rehearsed safety drills with her children, where to hide, what to say, who to call. She told no one about the rabbit, not even her parents. Every knock on the door made her freeze. Every unfamiliar car that slowed in front of the house made her heart hammer. This wasn't just fear, it was anticipation. She knew he was out there somewhere, watching, waiting. The court had stripped Derek of legal access to his children, but it hadn't stripped him of rage. And rage, especially from someone who believes he's been humiliated, doesn't fade quietly. Absolutely. Derek Halstead didn't take the loss well. Not just the custody ruling, but the public unraveling of his identity. In his mind, Monica hadn't just taken the kids. She had stripped him of authority, embarrassed him in court, and exposed him as replaceable. He started drinking more, whiskey straight from the bottle, beer for breakfast. He missed shifts at work, argued with supervisors, and showed up to job sites smelling like he hadn't showered in days. Within a month he was fired. Kyra stuck around long enough to see the downward tilt, but even she had a limit. When Derek screamed at her for leaving a light on, she packed a suitcase and was gone before the weekend. With no income and nowhere to go, he moved into the spare bedroom of his younger brother's apartment. The room had no windows, just a mattress on the floor and a lamp that flickered when the microwave ran. His brother, a mechanic with 3 kids of his own, gave him 2 weeks. Derek stayed for 6. He spent most of his days alone, scrolling through old photos of his children. But it wasn't nostalgia, it was control. He watched home videos from when Micah was 3, pausing each frame where Monica's face appeared. Then he'd delete it, whispering under his breath. She had ruined everything. Derek stopped showing up to his supervised visits. At first he offered excuses, car trouble, last-minute work. But when asked to reschedule, he either ignored the messages or responded with one word, no. Layla once told Monica, "I don't like going to see him. He just stares." Micah called him the angry man. At that point, Monica began consulting her lawyer about filing for termination of visitation altogether. The inconsistencies were stacking up, and more than that, something didn't feel right. She didn't trust that Derek would continue playing by the rules. Not when he hadn't respected a single one since the court ruling. But before she could take legal steps, Derek made his own plans. Plans no one saw coming, at least not until it was too late. It started with small purchases. A pair of gloves from a hardware store just outside of town. Then a ski mask. A hunting knife with a 6-inch blade. None of these items raised red flags on their own. But taken together, they painted a picture of someone no longer content to stew in anger. Derek paid in cash. No receipts. No trail. The same week he missed his final supervised visit, he drove past Monica's house 3 times in one day. His brother's pickup truck sat parked down the street, engine off, windows cracked. He watched as Layla rode her bike in circles on the driveway, as Monica watered the small vegetable garden they had planted years ago. He stayed just long enough to see Micah peek through the window. He didn't wave. That night, Monica couldn't sleep. She kept checking the locks, turning lights on and off. Her hands shook as she pressed her security system's keypad. The silence of the house felt heavier than usual, too quiet, like something had shifted. She lay in bed, eyes wide open, ears tuned for the faintest sound. 2 days later, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find nothing. But sitting on the doormat was a sheet of paper, torn from a notebook, with 4 words written in thick, uneven marker. You always choose them. No name. No signature. Just a message Monica didn't need to decode. She reported it again. The officer was kind, took notes, promised to patrol the area more frequently. But there was no physical contact, no trespassing caught on camera. Monica knew what that meant. More waiting. More hoping that her instincts were wrong. She started keeping a bag near the door with spare clothes, her ID, cash, and the kids' birth certificates. Just in case. Layla and Micah slept in the same room now, per Monica's request. She didn't tell them why. By the end of October, Monica considered staying somewhere else for a while, maybe with her cousin, maybe a hotel. But part of her held back. She had fought so hard to keep that home, to protect it, to raise her kids with routine and safety. Leaving felt like surrender. She had no way of knowing that Saturday night would be her last chance to run. It was the kind of evening Monica used to cherish. The kids had picked the movie, an old animated favorite. They ate popcorn in their pajamas, piled under one blanket, safe in the glow of the television. For a few hours, the fear that had crept into her life stayed outside the walls of her living room. After the credits rolled, Monica tucked Micah into bed and kissed Layla goodnight. She double-checked the locks, turned off the porch light, and made her way to the kitchen to tidy up before bed. The house was still. Too still. She heard it then, a faint metallic sound near the back window. Not loud, just wrong. Like metal brushing glass, slow and careful. Her stomach dropped. She froze, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Just silence. She reached for her phone, but the screen was dark. The power cut out. The whole house went black. She stood motionless, heart thudding in her chest. A cold grip wrapped around her spine. She whispered her children's names and told them to stay in their room, to lock the door, just like they'd practiced. Before she could move another inch, a deafening crash echoed through the front hallway. The door was open. Monica barely had time to register the figure charging at her. Dressed in black, face hidden, voice boiling with rage. "You took everything from me," he roared. Her instincts kicked in. She turned, slipped on the tile and hit the floor hard. He grabbed her hair, yanked her back. She reached for the nearest object. Anything. Her hand landed on the cast iron skillet resting on the stove. She swung. It connected. But Derek didn't fall. He came back harder, and this time with the knife. Derek's entrance wasn't subtle. The front door slammed against the wall with the force of a sledgehammer, cracking the drywall behind it. Monica barely had time to register the sound before he was in front of her. Glove, breathing like an animal. His eyes, cold and unblinking, were the only part of him exposed. "You took everything from me," he shouted again, louder this time, echoing off the kitchen walls. She tried to move, but he was faster. He grabbed a handful of her hair, yanking her backward until she hit the ground. Her head bounced against the tile. Stars filled her vision, but she reached out blindly, fingers sweeping across the floor until she found the handle of the cast iron skillet still sitting near the stove. She swung hard, catching him on the shoulder. It bought her a second. He stumbled but didn't go down. The skillet clanged as it dropped beside them. Monica scrambled across the floor, aiming for the hallway, but Derek was on her again. He straddled her back, pinning her to the cold floor. She kicked and twisted, trying to break free, but he was heavier, angrier, and prepared for this. Then she saw it. In his right hand, tight and steady, the knife glinted as it caught the faint light from the microwave display. 6 inches of cold steel. No hesitation in his grip. She reached for his face, dug her thumb into his eye with all the strength she had. He screamed, reeled back, giving her just enough space to crawl toward the pantry. But she didn't make it. The blade found her side. The sound she made wasn't a scream. It was a choked gasp, the kind that escapes before pain even registers. Warm blood soaked through her shirt instantly. Upstairs, Micah began to cry. Monica's instincts flared. "Go to the closet," she screamed. "Lock it like I told you." Layla's voice, sharp and terrified, echoed from above. "Micah, come on." Their footsteps pounded down the hallway. Derek turned toward the noise. Monica used that second to pull herself to the counter. She gripped the edge and forced herself upright, wobbling, teeth clenched. Her body screamed for her to fall, but she wouldn't. Not with her kids in the house. Not tonight. Blood trickled down Monica's side, warm and steady. Her legs felt like sandbags, but she stayed upright, staggering toward the drawer where she kept the spare phone. Derek saw her moving and charged again, this time with the knife raised high. No hesitation. She reached the drawer and ripped it open. Inside wasn't a phone. It was a pair of kitchen shears. Without thinking, she turned and slashed at him. It wasn't clean. It didn't stop him. But it caught him across the forearm, and for a brief moment, the balance shifted. Derek let out a guttural yell and dropped the knife. They both reached for it. Monica kicked it away with the last of her strength. It slid under the table, just out of reach. They wrestled in the middle of the kitchen. Monica clawing, scratching, gasping. Derek trying to pin her again, but this time slower, weakened from the cut. From outside the house, a dog barked. A door opened. Then a voice, sharp and unsure. "Monica?" It was Dolores Vance, the neighbor 2 doors down. She had heard something, maybe the scream, maybe the crash, and stepped onto her porch just in time to see a shadow move across Monica's window. She called out again, louder. Derek froze. Monica shoved him off and crawled backward, clutching her side, dragging herself behind the kitchen island. Her breaths came in short, fast gasps. Her vision narrowed. But she heard it. Sirens. They grew louder, faster than she expected. Maybe Dolores had already called. Maybe someone else had. Either way, help was coming. Derek ran for the door but tripped over the rug near the hallway. His head hit the baseboard with a sickening thud. He didn't move. When the first officer entered the house, weapon drawn, he found Monica barely conscious, curled up beside the counter, one hand pressed to her ribs, the other reaching toward her children's drawings still taped to the fridge. She looked up and whispered, "My kids, upstairs, please?" The officer nodded and rushed past. Moments later, Monica heard 2 familiar voices cry out, "Mommy," before everything around her faded to black. The next time Monica opened her eyes, everything was white. Ceiling tiles. Fluorescent lights. The faint hum of machines. Her body ached everywhere, stomach, shoulder, neck. Her throat burned from the breathing tube they had removed just an hour before. But she was alive. A nurse gently leaned over her bed. "You're in recovery," she said softly. "You lost a lot of blood, but you made it." Monica's first question wasn't about herself. "My kids. They're safe," the nurse said, nodding. "A neighbor found them hiding in a closet upstairs. They didn't have a scratch." Tears slipped from Monica's eyes before she could stop them. Not from the pain, from the relief. Later, the doctors explained what had happened. The blade had punctured her lung. 1 inch deeper and it would have ended differently. But the paramedics arrived quickly, and the trauma team had acted fast. In another hospital room just down the hall, but guarded by 2 officers, Derek Halstead lay unconscious, recovering from a concussion and several broken ribs. After hitting his head, he never regained full awareness. By the time law enforcement arrived, the knife was found under the table, the ski mask removed, and Monica's blood on his hands. He was arrested on the spot. The charges were immediate and severe: attempted murder, burglary, child endangerment, and violating a custody order. Bail was denied. 2 days later, while Monica was still recovering, a social worker brought Layla and Micah to see her. They ran to the bed, both crying, both holding on to her like they'd never let go again. Micah whispered, "We did what you said, Mommy. We stayed quiet." Monica smiled through her pain. "You were so brave." That night she slept, not deeply, not without fear, but knowing the worst had come and she was still here, alive. Derek Halstead never expected to wear handcuffs. But the moment officers found him half-conscious in Monica's hallway, surrounded by evidence of his intent, his future began closing in like steel doors. He was booked at the county jail within hours. His mugshot made the front page of the local paper, the headline bold and brutal: "Ex-husband charged after violent custody attack." But that was just the beginning. By the end of the week, the story had spread beyond Texas. National news outlets picked it up, calling it a chilling reminder of how dangerous custody disputes can become. One blog labeled it, "The custody case from hell." The phrase stuck. In court, Derek showed no remorse. His attorney pushed a mental health defense, claiming he suffered from depression, isolation, and emotional instability brought on by the loss of his family. But the prosecution dismantled that argument with precision. They presented receipts from the hardware store where Derek bought the gloves and knife. They introduced surveillance footage showing him parked outside Monica's house, twice, in the days leading up to the attack. They displayed texts retrieved from Derek's deleted folders, including the one that read, "If she takes them, she doesn't deserve to live." A forensic psychologist testified that Derek showed patterns of obsession and control, not a clinical breakdown but calculated behavior rooted in entitlement. The jury didn't deliberate long. After just 4 hours, they returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all charges. At sentencing, the judge didn't mince words. "You used fear as a weapon. You tried to take a mother from her children because the court took your control. That's not mental illness. That's choice." Derek was sentenced to 45 years without the possibility of parole. No reaction. No emotion. He stared forward as if the room were empty. But across the aisle, Monica sat upright, her children beside her, both holding her hands. Her voice steady, her eyes locked on the man who tried to erase her. "I used to think I owed you peace," she said. "But I don't. I owe my children's safety. I owe myself healing. And you? You don't get another say in our lives." After the sentencing, Monica didn't go home. She took Layla and Micah and stayed with a relative for several weeks. The house on Harlan Street, the one she fought so hard to keep, now felt contaminated. Every creak in the floor, every door hinge, every shadow across the porch reminded her of that night. Eventually, she sold the property, packed up her life, and moved to a small town several hours away. She changed her number. She registered under a different name at the children's new school. She didn't tell many people why. She just said they needed a fresh start. But Monica didn't disappear. Within 6 months, she began volunteering at a local women's shelter, helping other mothers navigate custody hearings, safety planning, and protective orders. Her story spread quietly at first, shared in whispers and hallway conversations. But soon she was being asked to speak at support groups, community meetings, and advocacy panels. People listened when she spoke. Not because of the scars on her body, but because of the calm in her voice. She told the truth without dramatics, how the system often reacts after the damage is done, how someone can win in court but still lose sleep at night, how rage doesn't always come with warnings, and how love, once weaponized, can become one of the most dangerous forces in the world. A year after the attack, she helped push forward a local proposal requiring stricter oversight for supervised visitation and faster response to domestic threats post-divorce. Her testimony helped pass the measure. It was a small step, but for Monica, it meant progress. Her children are growing now, older, stronger, quieter than they used to be. Layla plays piano. Micah wants to be a firefighter. They no longer ask where their father is. And Monica doesn't offer details. In her home, his name holds no power. But every now and then, when the news flashes another headline about a custody dispute turned violent, she turns down the volume, calls her children into the kitchen, and reminds them, "You're safe, we're safe, and no one will ever make us feel otherwise again." Monica never set out to be a voice for others. But when women began reaching out, first through whispers, then in long, tear-filled conversations, she realized silence wasn't an option anymore. What happened to her wasn't rare. That's what made it worse. There were too many mothers fighting quiet wars in courtrooms and kitchens. Too many stories buried under shame, fear, or a false sense of normal. Monica didn't want her children to grow up thinking that what they lived through was just something families go through. So she started small. A monthly meeting at the local community center. Just 4 women the first night, all with different stories but the same thread: control, threats, fear. Monica listened. She shared. Over time the group grew. A name was added to the door: Custody Courage. Now every seat is filled. Some women arrive with bruises. Others carry documents, custody papers, police reports, timelines. Some just cry the first time and say nothing at all. Monica never forces them to speak. She just makes sure they feel safer walking out than they did walking in. Her scars, one on her ribs, one across her collarbone, aren't things she hides. She wears sleeveless tops in summer. She doesn't flinch when someone asks. Her children have asked about them too. She tells them the truth. Age-appropriate but honest. "Someone tried to hurt me," she told Layla one evening. "But you didn't let him," her daughter replied. That's how they see her now. Not as a victim, not as someone broken, but as the one who stood her ground. As their protector. As their mother. 3 years have passed. Monica still sleeps with a motion sensor light outside her bedroom window. Not out of fear but habit. She locks the door twice, checks on her children once before bed and once again before sunrise. She's not waiting for danger anymore. She's just honoring the version of herself that didn't get to feel safe for so long. What happened in that house will never leave her entirely. The trauma lives in memories, in the unexpected startle when someone approaches too fast, in the ache that flares up on cold mornings where the blade went in. But healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to live anyway. Every woman in her support group hears the same message. You do not need permission to protect yourself. Whether it's legally, emotionally, or physically, you are allowed to choose peace over chaos. And if someone calls you selfish for doing so, walk away faster. Because as Monica learned the hard way, there is no courtroom, no document, no judge's ruling that can stop someone who believes control is their right. That's why education, preparation, and community matter. That's why stories like Monica's must be told. If you're still watching this, you know that survival isn't just about making it out alive. It's about what happens after, and who you become because of it. If you believe no one should fear for their life after standing up for their children, hit the like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below. Justice must be louder than rage. We read every comment, and you never know who you might be helping by speaking up. Subscribe to True Crime Dossier for more real-life stories that don't just shock you, but wake you up.